Hello, and welcome. After creating an AWS account, the next thing you must learn is how to find your way around the AWS Management Console. So, let's get started. There are three ways of managing AWS cloud resources: AWS Management Console, AWS CLI, AWS SDKs. AWS Console is a web-based GUI. AWS CLI is a tool that you can install in your computer and manage AWS resources via text commands. In 2020, AWS also introduced an option in the AWS Console to run the CLI commands without installing anything in your computer. We will see it later in this video. AWS SDKs are a set of libraries that let you write software to manage cloud resources. AWS has SDKs for many popular programming languages like Go, Java, JavaScript, Python, and several more. In this video we'll see how to use the AWS Console to manage cloud resources. When you log into your AWS account, you get the console home. Towards the left of the top navigation bar is your username and the AWS account number. Clicking on this pulls down a menu with links to manage specific aspects of your account. Just to the right of that, there is a menu to select the AWS region. AWS has data centers spread throughout the globe, and here you can see the regions where the data centers are located. Before working with any resources, you must select the correct region from here. For the moment, let's just keep the default selection, North Virginia. The Services menu contains all the AWS services organized into groups. Clicking on one group, such as Compute, we get all the services that belong to it. Let's click on EC2, the Amazon Compute Cloud. EC2 allows you to run virtual computing instances in AWS. For each AWS service, you get this menu with options related to it. Let's click on Instances to list down the EC2 instances we have. Currently, there are none. If we had created any instances, they would be listed here. Let's select another service, VPC, which is in the Networking and Content Delivery group. A VPC is a logically isolated private data center in AWS. A VPC in AWS acts as a container for cloud resources such as EC2 instances, firewalls, Kubernetes clusters, etc. For VPCs also, we get an interface similar to what we got for EC2. On this menu, now we get options that are related to managing features and functions in VPC. Let's see what VPCs we have already created, and there are three. Click on the VPC ID, and we get a detailed view of the VPC. Here we see the VPC ID, root table ID, main network ACL. Scrolling down a bit, we can see the CIDRs, the flow logs, and the tags. The VPC has a long list of options in the right side menu. Let's see what root tables we have. There are three. Now, if there were hundreds of line items here, it would be difficult for us to find the exact one we are looking for. In such cases, we can use a filter. We can filter by the VPC here. Now, we can see only the root table that belongs to the selected VPC. Let's clear that filter. There is another very smart filter here. Let's start typing the name of a root table, and it's suggesting us a criteria for filtering. Clicking on that, the filter is applied, and now we can see only one root table. Let's clear that filter as well. Selecting one of the root tables displays some information about it. There are tabs to manage routes, subnet associations, edge associations, etc. The Actions menu lists the things you can do with the selected root table, like edit routes, manage tags. Clicking on Edit Routes takes us to the Edit Routes page. Here, we can edit the routes of the root table. I am going to cancel this, as I am not going to edit anything at this point. To quickly find a service, we can use this search bar. Let's type in EKS, we get a set of items related to our search. Clicking on the Elastic Kubernetes service takes us to that page. EKS, or Elastic Kubernetes Service, is the AWS Managed Kubernetes Service, which allows you to operate hundreds of Kubernetes clusters in AWS. Here, we get a button to add an EKS cluster. Let's see what clusters we have already created. Oops, we get an error. It says that my account is not authorized to list the clusters. This is related to AWS IAM, which is a separate topic that I will be covering in another video. So, let's get back to the console home. Earlier, we mentioned that the AWS Console provides an option to use the AWS CLI without installing anything on your computer. Clicking on this icon here, we get a web-based version of the AWS CLI, called Cloud Shell. It takes some time to set up the Cloud Shell. Okay, now it's ready. Cloud Shell is actually a virtual machine running in AWS. It does not require installing anything on your computer. You can directly start issuing AWS commands. To get help on the CLI commands, type AWS help. It gives us a long list of services which support the CLI. Press Q to get back to the shell. The CLI commands start with AWS, followed by command, subcommand and some parameters. Let's try to list the VPCs we have created. We have to scroll down a bit. By default, the CLI prints the output in JSON format. It may be a little daunting to read, but it's handy for scripting. Press Q to get back to the shell. Coming back to the home page, we can find some widgets here. The recently visited widget lists the services that we have accessed recently. You can use it as a shortcut to quickly access a service. We also have other widgets related to AWS Health, Cost, and some workflow tools. We can also add one more widget, Favorites. It will help us to quickly access AWS services that we want. You can customize the position and the order of these widgets. I am going to take this widget to the top, since I am going to use it often. If you want, you can change the size to make it bigger, and fill the page. To add a service to the Favorites widget, we go to the Services menu and click on this star icon. Now, EC2 is added to my Favorites widget. I can use it to quickly access EC2 service, without going through the Services menu. If you want to remove EC2 from the Favorites list, go to the service, and click on the highlighted Start icon, and it will be removed from the widget. We now know how to find our way around the AWS console. If you find this video interesting, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Stay safe, and stay tuned to keep learning with CloudCube.